I stared at the text message flashing on my phone screen. It was from Victoria, my husband Julian's mother, who I'd been married to for 3 years. Don't call or come over. We're done. The words were laced with an unmistakable finality and a sense of condescending judgment. My knuckles were white as I gripped the steering wheel. It was 11:40 p.m. A low jazz tune played on the car radio, the lingering saxophone notes echoing harshly in the empty cabin. I didn't react with frantic calls or desperate texts begging for an explanation. I simply typed 3 words on the screen. Understood. Then I locked the phone and tossed it into the glove compartment. The engine hummed dully through the quiet neighborhood. I didn't press the gas. I let the car idle down the tree-lined avenue leading to the suburban villa Julian and I had bought together 3 hours earlier. I'd been working overtime at the trust management company in the city center, as a senior trust manager at this partnership firm. I just helped a client worth tens of millions secure $4 million in assets that her ex-husband had tried to funnel through a trust loophole. My assistant, Max, had joked at the time, "Eleanor, your sensitivity to numbers and legal clauses is like a precision instrument with no emotions. Anyone trying to play financial games in front of you might as well be doing it naked in broad daylight." I'd smiled then, thinking to myself that I was grateful I kept that sharpness at the office. At home, I'd given Julian and Victoria all the warmth and trust they could want. Looking back, that so-called warmth was clearly seen by them as a synonym for weakness to be exploited. The car came to a stop in front of the villa. The whole house was dark, save for a dim, warm yellow wall lamp in the master bedroom on the 2nd floor. I killed the engine and stepped out. An early autumn breeze, cool and sharp, cut through my thin business suit, crystallizing my scattered thoughts with piercing clarity. I took out my key and turned the lock gently. Click. The lock yielded. The living room was thick with the smell of red wine and greasy takeout pizza. I frowned slightly. I'd paid 70% of the down payment for this SE from my personal premarital account, with the remaining 30% covered by my mortgage. Julian's sole contribution was covering the negligible monthly property management fees. I slipped off my high heels and walked barefoot across the cold floor, making no sound. Scattered across the living room sofa were several expensive items of clothing that didn't belong to me: a new season Chanel coat and a pair of Prada heels caked with mud. I knew who they belonged to. Julian's no-good sister, Chloe, who spent her days dreaming of marrying into wealth through designer labels. "Mom, are you sure that idiot Eleanor isn't coming back tonight?" The sharp, excited voice came from the sitting room at the top of the stairs. It echoed clearly through the empty hallway. Completely unguarded. "She's signing a big client contract tonight. Won't be home until at least 2, came Victoria's voice, dripping with the same arrogant, controlling tone. "I've already sent her the breakup text. Knowing her, she's probably crying in the office bathroom right now, or driving around in a frenzy. Her pride won't let her come back here to confront us tonight. Mom's the best." Julian's voice chimed in, sycophantic and eager, yet devoid of any guilt towards me. "But are we sure about changing the locks? The title is in Eleanor's name. What if she calls the cops?" "Cops? On what grounds?" Victoria scoffed, her nails scraping against a glass with an irritating screech. "Julian, don't forget your sister is getting engaged next month to that VP from the listed company. They want a decent place in the city center for a wedding home. Eleanor bought this house with both your names on the contract. Sure, she paid most of it up front, but the mortgage payments have been coming from your joint account. I've already talked to a lawyer. As long as you insist it's community property, and we've taken physical possession, it'll take her at least 2 years of litigation to kick us out. 2 years is plenty of time for Chloe to get married and even have a baby." Chloe laughed triumphantly. "By then, it'll be a done deal, even if Eleanor has the deed. Can she really throw her own sister-in-law and a newborn out on the street?" She couldn't stomach the shame, and neither could her old-fashioned professor father. I stood in the dark stairwell, listening to these 3 people discuss, with the utmost naturalness, how to usurp my personal property. My heart beat calmly in my chest. There was none of the expected rage or tears. Instead, a clinical, Almost morbid calm washed over me from head to toe. They thought I was still the same Eleanor who kept making concessions to save this marriage and protect family dignity. They forgot that my profession was asset liquidation and trust risk control. In my world, legal weapons against human greed were my stock in trade. Julian. Victoria's voice came again, accompanied by the sound of more wine being poured. First thing tomorrow, go to the bank and transfer that money I told you about into your sister's account. Say it's a loan for her startup. It's your joint savings. Even if Eleanor finds out, she can only claim it as a marital debt. She can't touch you. Got it, Mom? You always think of everything. Eleanor's too controlling, making me account for every penny of my allowance. I've had enough of her. Julian's voice carried a smug, petty satisfaction. I pulled out my phone and started the voice recorder with practiced ease. Then, I climbed the stairs, my footsteps firm and deliberate. The wooden floorboards creaked under my weight. A steady, dull thud that sounded like a hammer striking the nerves of the three people above. The laughter in the sitting room stopped abruptly. When I reached the top of the stairs and stepped into the hallway light, I saw three faces freeze in an instant. Frozen in shock and disbelief. Julian still held his wine glass, the liquid trembling slightly with his shaking hand. Chloe, who had her feet propped on my leather sofa, now sat rigid as a grotesque statue. And Victoria, the self-proclaimed matriarch, was gaping. A stack of property documents from my study clutched in her hand. I looked at them, a faint, gentle smile touching my lips, almost pitying. Good evening, everyone. My voice was soft, slow, spreading through the empty sitting room. It seems I came back just in time. The air in the sitting room seemed to vanish in an instant. Julian instinctively tried to hide the wine glass behind his back, but a few dark red drops splattered onto his new light-colored pants, staining them like fresh blood. Chloe flinched as if burned, yanking her feet off my leather sofa, leaving a distinct scratch mark from her Prada heels. Eleanor, what are you doing back now? Julian's voice was hoarse, his eyes shifty, unable to meet my gaze. This is my house. Julian. I stepped forward, my expression calm, my bare feet padding steadily on the hardwood floor. Where else would I go? Should I be sobbing in my downtown office? Just as you planned, after receiving your mother's text. Victoria, ever the survivor, only panicked for half a second before composing herself. She nonchalantly slid the property documents under a cushion, then raised her sharp, malicious eyes and sneered. Since you heard it all, let's cut the crap. Eleanor. My text was clear. We need this house. Chloe is getting engaged next month to someone from the top management of a listed company. They're a prominent family. Do you think they'd let their son marry a girl who doesn't even have a decent place to live? Can you afford to ruin this for her? So you just decided to lock me out and seize my property. I pulled up a chair and sat down leisurely, hands folded in my lap. My posture was elegant and cold, like a department head reviewing a subordinate's report, not a wife about to be kicked out. Seize, that's such an ugly word. Chloe shrieked, her selfishness shining through without shame. My brother's name is on the deed too. You've been married 3 years. What's yours is his. Isn't it only natural for him to use his own house for his sister? And you, his wife, instead of helping, you're being sarcastic. Where's your sense of family responsibility? I looked at Chloe's greed-twisted face, then at Julian, who stood silently, even nodding slightly in agreement. Family responsibility. I let out a soft, mocking laugh. Chloe, you seem to have a fundamental misunderstanding of the law. The down payment for this house came entirely from my premarital trust account. Legally, that's premarital personal assets. As for the joint repayment portion, Julian's monthly contributions to our joint account haven't even covered the property taxes and fees. Should I have accounting print out the detailed statements for the past 3 years and paste them on your company's front desk? Julian's face went white. He knew exactly what I was capable of. Eleanor, don't be so ruthless. Victoria slammed the table, her well-maintained face contorted with rage. Keeping such meticulous accounts between husband and wife, what do you take Julian for? He married you, so you owe it to this family. Besides, Even if you sue, we're already living here. Court filings, schedules, hearings. It'll take at least 2 years for a verdict. Chloe will be long married and settled by then. Our possession will be a fait accompli. What can you really do? Are you going to have the cops drag your mother-in-law and sister-in-law out onto the street for your precious, gold medal manager reputation? She even took 2 smug steps forward, getting in my face, using that streetwise, shameless tone. Here's the deal. We're taking this house. You play nice. Transfer the title or hand over the keys, and we'll all get along fine. Otherwise, no one's having a good time. Oh, really? I looked up, meeting her defiant gaze. I wasn't angry. I didn't argue. I didn't say a word. I simply took out my phone and pressed play. The sitting room filled with the crisp, unmistakable sound of their conversation. As long as you insist it's community property and we've taken physical possession, it'll take her at least 2 years of litigation to kick us out. First thing tomorrow. Go to the bank and transfer that money I told you about into your sister's account. Say it's a loan for her startup. It's your joint savings. Even if Eleanor finds out, she can only claim it as a marital debt. She can't touch you. The recording was crystal clear, catching every breath, every inflection of Victoria and Julian's voices. Julian stumbled, nearly knocking over the wine rack behind him. He pointed a trembling finger at me. Eleanor, you recorded us. You set us up. How can you call that a setup? Julian. I smiled, clicking the phone off with a crisp snap. This is called risk control. As a trust partner, collecting and preserving potential evidence that could damage my assets is simply professional instinct. I stood up, dusted off my coat, and swept my cold gaze over them. In that recording, you clearly conspired to create fraudulent debt, illegally seize personal property, and maliciously transfer marital assets. Julian, Victoria, Chloe, tell me if I hand this recording to my senior partners and lawyers, along with Julian's attempted bank transfers tomorrow, what would the court call it? I leaned in close to Victoria, watching her sharp eyes fill with terror. I spoke softly, calmly, cruelly, just for her to hear. Conspiracy to commit fraud and embezzlement. Felony charges. Potentially. Prison time. You're bluffing. Victoria's voice finally cracked, though she tried to hold firm. I'm your mother-in-law. You wouldn't send us to jail. You can test that theory. I stepped back and pulled the door open to the dark. Open night. It's midnight now. We're done. Victoria, that was your proposal. I accept. I turned back to face their ashen faces, flashing the brightest smile of the evening. So, our gamight's officially begun. The air turned to solid ice, heavy on everyone's chests. Victoria glared at my phone, breathing heavily, her cheap red nails digging into her palms. But after a moment of panic, the fear in her eyes gave way to a hysterical madness and gutter-level cruelty. Fine, Eleanor. You've grown some teeth. She lunged forward, jabbing a finger almost at my nose, her shrill voice echoing harshly. Recording. Calling the cops. Don't you dare posture with me. Don't forget, your old man is a tenured professor at the National University. His precious reputation is everything. If you dare to make a scene, if you dare to have your husband arrested, I'll camp out at his school with a banner. I'll spit on his office door. I'll make sure the whole campus knows his daughter is a viper who throws her own mother-in-law and husband in jail. I stood there, watching her face contort with rage. A few droplets of her spittle landed on my impeccably starched collar. I didn't flinch. I didn't even blink. Mom's right. Chloe, emboldened, shrieked in support. She grabbed my favorite handcrafted bone china cup from the coffee table and hurled it at the floor by my feet. It shattered with a sharp crack, shards flying and cutting a thin line of blood across my bare ankle. You're just a glorified accountant for rich people, playing at being high and mighty. My fiancé is a CFO at a listed company, could snap your firm's client base in half with a flick of his finger. If you ruin my engagement, I'll make sure you can't work in this town again. Chloe stomped on my leather couch, looking down and literally spitting in my direction. You're giving us this house today, whether you like it or not. Julian, what are you waiting for? Throw her out. Fueled by his mother and sister. Julian's cowardice curdled into greedy, weak-willed anger. He yanked at his collar, took a big step forward, and reached to grab my bag and phone. Eleanor, give me the phone. We're married. Don't make me get physical. Cooperate. Sign the house over to Chloe. And we can still be a family. Otherwise, you're not walking out that door. His soft, desk job hands clamped onto my shoulders. His fingers digging hard through my clothes. The pain hit, but it only sharpened my mind into a hyper-precise supercomputer. I looked down at Julian's veined, straining wrists and said, in a flat, emotionless voice, Julian, let go. This is your last chance. Quit acting. Julian shoved me harder, trying to pin me against the cold, hard wall. A twisted, prideful satisfaction spread across his face. You can be a big shot outside, but in this house, you're my woman. I'm taking this house, and there's nothing you can do about it. I didn't fight. I let him push me into the corner. With my free hand, out of his sight, I blindly typed and sent a preset emergency text to my assistant and personal counsel, Max. It was a prearranged code. Code read, 2 minutes later. The street outside the villa was flooded with blinding red and blue strobe lights, accompanied by the shrill, growing wail of sirens. Julian froze. The arrogance drained from his face, leaving it deathly pale. When did you call the cops? Victoria's voice trembled as she stared out the window at the flashing lights tearing through the night. Right before I came up the stairs, I activated the automatic emergency alert system. If my heart rate exceeds a safe threshold for a certain period, or if I manually trigger the emergency call, the city police and my legal team are on site in 10 minutes. I casually pushed Julian's limp hand away and straightened my collar. I looked down at the drying blood on my ankle, then at the shattered porcelain on the floor. Julian, Victoria, Chloe. I stepped onto the broken shards, letting the sharp edges bite my skin again. A faint, sharp sting. My smile deepened, but it didn't reach my eyes. They were cold as a frozen lake. Domestic dispute. No. Legally, this is illegal restraint, malicious destruction of property, and aggravated assault. Oh, and let's not forget the conspiracy to commit fraud and embezzlement you so helpfully confessed to and recorded. Outside, a heavy knock pounded on the door, followed by the stern shouts of law enforcement. I smiled at their 3 faces, pale and bloodless under the alternating red and blue lights. Congratulations, everyone. The curtain has only just risen. The door lock gave way with a heavy crash. Officers filed in, followed by my partner and personal attorney, Max. He wore an immaculate dark gray suit, a sleek black leather briefcase in hand, and his professional, sharp eyes gleamed behind his glasses. Eleanor, are you okay? Max glanced at the blood on my ankle. Then his gaze hardened as it fixed on Julian and Chloe. I'm fine, Max. I took a wet wipe and elegantly dabbed at the blood, my voice cool. Miss Chloe here deliberately broke a glass and injured me, and Mr. Julian forcibly restrained me and attempted to seize my phone and personal belongings. Also, they just confessed and I have it recordetto planning to fraudulently seize my personal property. This house worth $3 million. Liar. Chloe, pinned by an officer, finally broke down crying, her earlier arrogance gone. It was an accident. I'm her sister-in-law. This is a family matter. You can't arrest us, ma'am. The report involved domestic violence and restraint. We have visible injuries and property damage at the scene. The lead officer produced handcuffs with a metallic clink that made everyone's teeth ache. You'll need to come with us for questioning. Julian, say something. Mom. Chloe panicked, crying and looking at Julian and Victoria. Julian, now ashen and slumped by the sofa, tried to grab my hand, but Max blocked him with his briefcase. Mr. Julian, as Ms. Eleanor's counsel, I'm officially notifying you. Max pulled out documents and handed them to him. My client has filed for divorce. Furthermore, as you, your mother Victoria, and your sister Chloe are suspected of conspiracy to commit fraud and malicious transfer of marital assets. We have submitted a full financial trail and the aforementioned recording to the Economic Investigation Division. Under the relevant code, the amount involved up to $600,000 constitutes serious criminal offenses. $600,000. What's $600,000? Victoria shrieked, her sharp eyes wide. That's Julian's own money. He lent it to his sister. Whether it's his money or not, bank records speak louder than your mouth. I stood and walked over to Victoria, looking down at her wrinkled, fear-sagged face. Victoria, did you think Julian's multiple transfers to Chloe's account would escape my notice? As a trust and asset risk expert, I set up transaction monitoring on all of Julian's secondary cards and linked accounts 6 months ago. That money came from our joint investment account. And that account's principal came entirely from my premarital assets. This constitutes a malicious misappropriation of marital property. I leaned in close, my voice a soft whisper like wind over a graveyard. Chloe's fiancé is a CFO of a listed company, right? How do you think their board would react to a lawyer's letter regarding his fiancé's family being involved in a criminal fraud investigation? Would his position still be secure? Would a family with such standards accept a daughter-in-law facing a criminal trial and potential prison time? No, please. Chloe collapsed in despair, sobbing uncontrollably. Eleanor, I was wrong. Sister, please, don't send it to them. I can't lose this marriage. I can't go to jail. Calling me sister now is a bit late, isn't it? I stepped back and nodded to the officer. Officer, please proceed. I want to secure all property in this house and file formal charges against all three. I will not accept mediation. I watched the officers lead a screaming, crying Chloe, a catatonic Victoria, and a pale, trembling Julian out the door. The villa fell silent once more. Max put away his documents and looked at me. Eleanor, this is just the beginning. I've also arranged things with Julian's company. Good. I watched the red and blue lights flashing outside, a cold smile curling at the corner of my mouth. I want them to learn that taking what's mine comes with a price they'll never be able to afford. 6 in the morning. The morning mist still clung to the air as I sipped my third cup of black coffee in the office. Max walked in, holding a freshly printed audit report and a court order stamped urgent. He had a satisfied, almost predatory look. Eleanor, just as you predicted. Julian panicked. Before the bank even opened, he tried to transfer that $600,000 investment piecemeal via mobile banking. But the pre-litigation asset freeze we applied for last night took effect half an hour ago. His personal accounts and all linked cards on WeChat and Alipay are frozen. I set down my cup, tapping my fingers on the desk. And Chloe's fiancé, that listed company CF, received a copy of the criminal case filing notice and asset seizure order 10 minutes ago. Max laughed coldly. He's smart. Upon seeing the words, conspiracy to commit fraud, and defendant in embezzlement, he immediately said he was re-evaluating the relationship. Chloe is currently wailing outside his office building, but security wouldn't even let her through the front door. I nodded. This was true social annihilation. For someone like Chloe, who lived for vanity and status, watching her meticulously crafted, ticket-to-high life engagement crumble to dust was far more painful than prison. Just then, my personal phone buzzed furiously. A familiar number. Julian. I answered and put it on speaker. Eleanor. You maniac. What the hell do you want? Julian's hysterical scream filled the quiet office. All my accounts are frozen. HR called me and someone sent a letter to the board about me being investigated for crimes. I'm suspended. Are you trying to destroy me? Destroy you? I leaned back, my voice calm and cool. Julian, you seem to have your cause and effect reversed. Your mother wrote the script, coaching you to transfer my premarital assets. You executed the transfers and tried to seize my property. I simply translated your actions into legal terms and sent copies to your boss and your sister's fiancé. Eleanor, please. We're still married. Julian's voice suddenly went soft, pleading desperately. I was weak. It was all my mom's idea. She said if we got the house, Chloe would look out for us later. I never wanted to hurt you. Please drop the charges. I'll pay you back. I'll write a confession. I'll do whatever you say. Weak. I laughed. A sound without warmth. Julian. Last night, when you had your hands on my shoulders, trying to push me to the ground, saying you were taking this house, that wasn't weakness. You. Listen to me. Julian. I cut him off, my tone turning ice cold. I gave you a chance. On the stairs. I told you to let go. That was your last chance to walk away with some dignity, but you chose to keep stealing. Now, my trust team is auditing all your accounts for the past 3 years. The insurance premiums you paid for your mother. Your sister's credit card bills, you covered all of it. Without spousal consent. Counts as malicious gifts. I'm taking it back. Every cent. With interest. Eleanor. You poisonous bitch. You'll burn in hell. Victoria's screeching voice cut in from Julian's end. If you ruin my son and daughter, I swear I'll go to your father's school. Go ahead. Victoria. I cut her off. My voice flat. A smile of victory in my eyes. But before you go, check your mailbox at the old house. Half an hour ago. The court summons and seizure order arrived there. Since Julian and Chloe's assets aren't enough to cover the $600,000 shortfall from your fraud, as the co-conspirator, your old house has been legally seized. If you don't cooperate, next week, the bailiffs will personally come and toss you and your belongings onto the street. Dead silence on the phone. Victoria's heavy breathing echoed through the speaker, mixed with Chloe's wailing in the background, a beautiful symphony to my ears. Enjoy your last shreds of dignity. Everyone. I hung up and watched the sunrise through the window. I felt utterly, completely free. 3 days later, the private lounge at the top of the landmark building, bright with sunlight. I sat on a black leather sofa. Max behind me holding the final property execution and divorce settlement documents. Across from me sat Julian, Victoria, and Chloe. In just 3 days, they looked 10 years older. Julian was unshaven, his once expensive suit now rumpled, his eyes hollow and defeated. Victoria's silver hair was a mess, her sharp arrogance replaced by a dull gray pallor. Chloe, reedied, shrank behind her mother, trembling, unable to even look at me. Eleanor. Julian's voice was like sandpaper. He looked up. His eyes filled with pleading, even cringing deference. We read the agreement. But, could you leave us the old house? My mom is old. If it gets auctioned, she'll end up in a shelter. Please, for the sake of our 3-year marriage. Just this once. I'll go with nothing. I'll disappear. Please. Marriage. I lifted a fine bone china cup, sipping black tea, its warmth spreading through me, but my voice was frozen. Julian, when you were in that sitting room, plotting how to use 2 years of litigation to steal my house and transfer my money for your sister's dowry, did you think of our marriage? When Chloe smashed a glass and cut my ankle, and you grabbed my shoulders and tried to force my phone away, did you see any shred of that marriage? Eleanor. I am so sorry. Chloe suddenly slid off her sofa and knelt at my feet, reaching for my pants. I recoiled, disgusted, pulling my leg away. My engagement is ruined. They broke it off and spread it everywhere. Now everyone knows I'm a fraud suspect. No company will hire me. Chloe bawled. Tears and snot smeared across her face. A pathetic sight. If we lose the old house, I'll be on the street. Sister, please forgive me. I'll do anything. Beside her, Victoria, watching her pampered daughter grovel, finally dropped her pride. She slipped from her chair and knelt alongside her, tears streaming down her lined face, her voice a broken tremor. Eleanor. It's all my fault. I was greedy. I put Julian up to it. If you want revenge, take it on me. Let Julian and Chloe go. They're young. They can't have criminal records. I'm begging you. I'm on my knees. I looked at these 2 women who had once mocked and bullied me, now groveling like beaten dogs. I felt nothing but a calm, vast emptiness. I just looked at them. A faint, almost gentle smile on my lips that sent chills down their spines. Victoria. Chloe. I set my cup down with a sharp clink that silenced their crying. In my career, I've seen many greedy people. When they're winning, They trample on others' dignity and property without a thought. When they lose, they think cheap tears and begging will buy mercy. But the most expensive price in this world is never paid with tears. I motioned to Max. He placed 3 pens in front of Julian and Victoria. Under the criminal code regarding fraud and embezzlement, Max stated, devoid of emotion, if you don't sign this voluntary repayment agreement and unconditional divorce agreement today, and fully repay the $600,000 by next week, my firm will not withdraw the criminal charges. In that case, you'll face not just public disgrace and asset loss, but at least 5 years in prison. Julian stared at the pen, his whole body shaking. He knew there was no way out. His career, reputation, family, everything had been methodically, legally erased in a few days. With a trembling hand, he signed his name in a jagged scrawl. Victoria, slumping to the floor, signed as well in despair. I watched them, then stood, smoothing my immaculate suit. Pleasure doing business, Mr. Julian. I looked down at them, my gaze like looking at dust on the road. Oh, I'm sorry. We are no longer anything. Take your greed and your stupidity, and get the hell out of my life. I turned, my heels clicking firmly on the floor as I walked to the door. It closed behind me, sealing their cries and regrets in another world. The sun through the floor-to-ceiling windows washed over me, warm and golden. The farce they had set in motion had ended, perfectly, with me holding the final pen.